there is this very dangerous analogy, which I live by, which is that life is like a video game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Raw and Real podcast. Are you dreaming of changing your life through opening a business? Or are you curious what obstacles entrepreneurs had to overcome on their journey? Then you're in the right place. My name is Agnes Bilik and I'm your host. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Raw and Real. Today's guest on the show is Julian Jagtenberg. He's the head of growth and co-founder of Somnox, the world's first sleep robot. The robot looks a little bit like a pillow in the form of a peanut and helps you fall asleep more easily. They follow the concept of mirroring as it adjusts the breathing rhythm to yours, just like the mom and the baby do. Hey, Julian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, Julian, as a kid, you always liked building things and you discovered that you were a fan of technology at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was the biggest influence in your life that pushed you to take the entrepreneurial path?
I would say that I was always inspired when looking at TV or reading cartoons. You had this character with it, Donald Duck, which was called Gary Gearloose, the inventor type of guy in Ducktown. And he was always coming up with the craziest inventions. Like he had little robots and rockets and whatever. And as a kid, I was always saying, okay, I want to become an inventor, just like Gary Gearloose. And that started with building and tinkering around with household appliances, building tree houses and stuff. And that grew up into choosing my studies, which was at the University of Technology Delft, and to what I'm doing today.
And when you started your business in order to solve your mom's problem of insomnia, were there any mental obstacles that you had to overcome or also insecurities?
I would say it was a very personal problem, For many people, sleeping is, something that's always there. It's not a problem. And if you do not know what true sleep deprivation is, right? If you every single night keep staring at the ceiling, that will really, really mess up your health and well-being. And for me, seeing my mom like that was really hard. It wasn't just that she had a bit of a headache. No, she really had an impact on all the aspects of her life, like her work, her friends, her family. So she wasn't herself anymore. And because I was so frustrated by seeing that my mom was experiencing that problem, I really wanted to do something about that. So in a way, something that really frustrated me and I felt a bit powerless, I was considering, okay, what do I have in my power and skill set to help her, which was robotics engineering. So that's basically how those things came together. And how that was also quite challenging because then again, you really wanted to succeed and you do feel quite powerless in such a situation.
Do you think that frustration is also driving you to find the right solutions in a way?
For sure. I truly believe for every entrepreneur or creator, what you call them nowadays, it's vital to be frustrated about a problem you experience yourself, because those are real problems that real people experience. And if you look at the top 2 reasons for startups to fail, it's usually the product that people do not need or want, but the founders themselves lie to themselves that people do need it. And because I had this personal frustration and I was very empathetic with my mom, so I was basically the end customer myself, the solutions tend to get way better, and businesses as well, because you tap into a real market need. And this is, of course, viewed from a business perspective. But truly, every great startup, I think, should have this origin story where either the founder or the creator has affinity with the problem that he or she experiences himself. And in this case, it was my mom that I found suffering. So it wasn't really myself, but it was someone that was very dear to me.
And in the beginning, you also had media coverage really quickly, right?
Yes.
and to spread the word really fast. So maybe can you give us an overview of the steps that you took in order to achieve that?
Yeah. So basically, considering that phase where my mom was suffering and I was tinkering around, I created various prototypes. The first ones didn't work at all, but at a certain point, we found something that was working, and that gave her, well, the benefit during the night to ease her mind. And when we poured that into a study with more participants rather than just my mom, I mean, there's this great book, by the way, it's called the Mom Test, which you might know, which your mom will always say she loves your idea, right?
Yeah,
So it's the worst validation ever. Therefore, we also asked other people that we didn't know, and we wrote a paper about our findings of the impact and the effectiveness of our invention. And once we had published that, which it still was an academic project, right, within the university, not a business at all, we were suddenly picked up by the Volkskrant, which is one of the Dutch newspapers around. And they wrote about our paper with the title or the headline, "Might this be the solution for insomniacs?" Question mark. And that particular article really started the business mind behind what Somnox is today. Because when that article was out there, a lot of people started Googling and they found the paper, which included our student email address still by that time. And I remember that in the week of publishing of that article, we got around 1,000 emails of people desperately emailing us. I am addicted to pills. And if this thing of yours could help me sleep 10 more minutes, I am willing to try it and test it. And we were, well, amazed, right? We were in awe about what happened. Usually that stuff doesn't happen with an academic project. It ends up in a dusty basement. So from that point onwards, we decided to create a little website. So we were a bit more
professional.
Yeah, there was no marketing done, right? It was just an academic project. And now there was something, at least, like an easy WordPress website. But that really kept the ball rolling because that Volkskrant article did one thing. But if you're in the Volkskrant, another paper sees it and another paper sees it. And then a snowball effect.
Do you know how they came across you? Was it kind of just a coincidence?
It wasn't. It was a coincidence in a way. So we did present our research on one of the university's symposium, right? Which usually it's just fellow students walking around. But in this case, there was apparently a journalist from the Volkskrant who was there. So you never know, right? Your university symposium might actually be valuable. Yeah.
And can you tell us something about the failures you experienced along the way? Because I bet that must have been quite a frustrating journey as well.
Yeah. Oh, lots of them. You know, every day there's a lot of shit going on. And there is this infamous Finnish quote, I think, which is the only constant in life is the amount of shit. And by acknowledging that, I feel way more happy about every situation because there's always things that will fail. And there's always, especially as an entrepreneur, when your company grows, you will have this fear of failure. And like one of the highlights in my failure roadmap, we actually keep track of them, by the way, on our wall in the office. We want to celebrate failure. I really like the acronym for that. Fail is actually first attempt in learning, which I really think is a mindset to incorporate within your company.
Yeah.
But yeah, to mention some examples which were really tough is, first of all, we had a bad hire. Right? The first person we hired, we never hired anyone. I mean, we were entrepreneurs, we were engineers.
Yeah.
And well, that guy just wanted to have so much money, wanted to have equity. And he really was a rotten apple, basically. And that was, messing around with the culture and the business in the beginning days. And well, to get rid of such a person can be quite difficult, because you first of all, you have never hired one. And you have never fired someone.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting experience. And then the second failure that I found quite tough was we funded our business through Kickstarter, right? So we accepted pre-orders of our invention to fund the manufacturing line. And we promised, okay, we will be delivering the product within 9 months from now, which is the same amount of months to produce a baby. Was a bit of a joke because our product looks like it.
Yeah.
But we had a huge delay because in order to launch a product on the European market, you need something which is called CE certification, which is great because it ensures that we are safe for the electronics that we have. But since we have made a sleep robot, which was so innovative, there were not any regulations that we could follow. So that meant that we had a delay of almost 6 to 7 months on top of what we had promised. And as you can imagine, your customers will become angry, which is not nice. Your money is running out really, really quickly because suddenly you have to extend your runway or the liquidity of the company with half or a year in the early stage of a company without any investors on board. So that really, really put ourselves in a spot where we were, with our back against the wall and where we could have been, not where we are today. But in the end, I think by being really persistent and not only believing that you can do it, but by being convinced that you can do it, and that we had a team that had that as well, we managed to do it.
So you mentioned that there were no regulations out there for your product because it was something so new.
Yeah.
So what took 6 months? Like, how did the process look like?
So basically, you need to go to a notified body. This is an independent organization that will check whether your product is safe. They have all sorts of assessments with heat and electricity, electromagnetic fields, whatever, just to ensure that it is safe in a home context. And then again, we have a product where a battery will be underneath the sheet against your body at night.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine that a lot can go wrong, potentially speaking, if you put a battery underneath a sheet, which is warm, blah, blah, blah. So the main issue that they found was, okay, how do you ensure that the battery is safe? Because you don't want it to catch fire at night, right? That would be terrible. Which was like, oh my gosh, this could ruin the whole project. And we already spent 2 years of our life and resources and all the risks in it. So you don't want to hear it. But then again, first attempt in learning, right? So we're like, this is actually a good thing that this is happening, because imagine that if that is not certified and it does happen, that's when you will really, really be ashamed of yourself. So it was tough, but we managed to pull through, be really on top of things.
Did you have to make any adjustments to the product because of that process?
Yes. Yeah, which was really shitty because we already invested in tooling, right, to create the product for mass manufacturing. And we had to pick different materials in the end, which had a drastic impact on the prior investments we had made, which were basically, we burned some cash there.
Useless,
yeah. And that is, I mean, every euro you have in the beginning is worth more than a euro in a way, you know. So that was a big lesson for us, and a big put a lot of pressure on the team, which we made long hours, and then you get to see who really is convinced of the product and who isn't, so to say, in terms of not only the team but also customers, partners that trust in your vision.
And because you mentioned that the customers were also really angry in certain cases because you couldn't deliver on time.
Yeah.
What were your experiences then as well?
I mean, people put in money, right? And they don't see any product on their doorstep for 1.5 years. Kickstarter, of course, is that way. It makes sense, but not everyone gets that. The pre-order, like we live in a society where everything is accessible 24/7, next day delivery. Even today, there's same day delivery, which is nowadays the standard, right?
Yeah.
So there is no web shop that will say delivery in 1.5 years from now.
Yeah.
But we did it. We pulled it off. So the only way to make sure people will not, they will complain, but to not make them refund or hate your company, is just to be very transparent about your situation and communication. Communication is a very important thing. So we send out a monthly newsletter, which always included a personal video message explaining about the timeline, being very open and honest about what was happening. And well, some people still refunded it because they needed it now and they were sleeping very bad and they couldn't wait 1.5 years to sleep better, which I get. It's a different proposition than a phone case.
Yeah.
It's urgent. But most of the people actually strengthened their bond with our brand because they connected with us from a founder level. They felt part of the creation. They were feeling. They also took risk. So in a way, you could say that event or failure was a benefit for our inner circle of brand ambassadors.
And do you know approximately what kind of percentage of people sticked with you and what wanted a refund?
I think in the crowdfunding phase, a lot of people stayed, right? I think in the end, the returns were very minimal. I think it was 3%.
Oh, really?
And to give you an idea, for fashion, it's like 25%. So 25% of every clothing or apparel will be sent back. And we were at 3%. But then again, the audience that buys at Kickstarter is more
used to that.
Yeah.
These kind of problems.
Exactly. So it's not that fair, you know. Currently, like we do have next day delivery. You also have this web shop dynamic, and it's very fast paced. And then you will have a higher percentage of people returning it, for sure. Because we're not selling a product, we're selling a benefit, a promise. We don't care that it technically works. You care that you wake up with more energy, which is something you can only prove by trying it. Right? So, yeah.
And what kind of advice do you wish you had when you navigated these failures?
A lot of tips and tricks, I would say. Not just one. But I think it's always vital to be very honest with yourself. Are you creating something that people actually want? Or are you lying to yourself based on your own vision that people want it? And the way to do that is to be brutally honest with yourself and the people around you about the assumptions you have within your product or in your business model. Like, yeah, every idea you have, like, I consider everything you do a bit of a scientific experiment in a way, right? You do the hypothesis that this will be a big company. You do the hypothesis that this is a good idea, that it will help people, but back it up with data, prove it. And that's really that lean startup mentality, right? To fail quickly, learn fast, and preferably cheap. I think that is an important lesson to really, really understand when you begin, because it's so easy to get caught up in everything that is happening around you. Yeah, and the other tip that I think is still vital today and that I need to remind me every day is that there will be so many opportunities out there, especially as an entrepreneur. There is no ceiling, right? You can always go bigger. I mean, as an employee within a corporate, you have a fixed amount of salary. Maybe you get a raise and there's some promotions going on. But as an entrepreneur, everything is possible, right? You can go to the States to sell your product. You can go to a big conference. You can buy a nice office, whatever. And I think the best entrepreneurs really can say no strategically. So it's not about saying yes, but it's more about saying no. What will you not do? And what is your focus? Like, what are the top 3 things you will do this year? And that's your promise, and stick to it. Nothing more. I think minimalism really is a trend nowadays in your house, but bring minimalism to entrepreneurship and your life, and it will make things so much more valuable. Yeah.
And I'm also curious because I read in one of your blogs that after you failed in the beginning, you felt this paralyzing guilt. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, failure is never easy.
Mm.
It's not. But then again, it's the reality won't change based upon your response on the event itself. So after I had some rough experiences in failing in something, one more drastic than the other, you can choose to be optimistic and have a certain mindset about things. And there is this very dangerous analogy, which I live by, which is that life is like a video game.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of dangerous because in a video game, you can respawn if you die, right? Well, in life, you can't.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a video game in hardcore mode. But if you consider every challenge you face in life, be it a business challenge, be it a breakup, be it someone dying around you, these are quite rough examples.
Quite intense, yeah.
Yeah, but I do mean it that way. You need to have a paradigm that it is a challenge and a level in the game of life to see how can you deal with it in a way that you stay sane without reducing your health points. And in that way, it makes life more fun because, again, the amount of shit is constant. So you might as well see it as a game. Challenge yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable, that usually means you are outside your comfort zone and growing. And if you can acknowledge that and really have that mindset, things become so much more fun. So now when some really shitty thing is happening, I mean, the more the company grows, the bigger the budgets, the bigger the failure will be, basically. It's not small and tiny anymore. It can be very anxious, right? Like sometimes at night, I mean, I sleep very well, but my dreams are about my work, about the things that I'm anxious about. And then by every day, I have like this affirmation ritual in the morning.
Can you share with us what you're saying then, for example?
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of things. I have a list, and they're not on top of my head, but some of them are. This morning I did it actually. That I'm grateful. That I actually everything I do, I want to do handle from love and not from making money, but from love. And with love, I mean adding meaning to not myself, but others around me.
Yeah.
That everyone I speak to, I want to leave them better than before I spoke to them. I do it in Dutch, so I'm translating on the spot.
That's fine.
Then I'm a healthy individual that takes care of himself, and that is a priority for me. And that in return for the services and the value I bring, I can also get a certain amount of money, which can facilitate the way I want to live, which is buying time. Right? In the end, everyone has the same amount of time. Even Bill Gates has 24 hours. His bank account is a bit more. So I want to make sure that my calendar, I am totally free in what I do. Like I'm here now, and it's a work day. It's in the middle of the day. There's people in my office working now, but I choose to be here. And that is a sense of freedom that I really appreciate. Yeah.
What are the realizations that helped you to really live that? Because I think it's one thing to say that, to see that as a challenge, but to implement it is way harder.
Yeah. There's one of the things that is definitely the hardest about knowing these kind of theories or tips and tricks and advices is execution.
Yeah.
Right? Knowledge isn't power. Execution is. Which I think really should be restated because in the ancient books, it always is knowledge is power. It's the execution which will actually bring power. So for me, also one of my affirmations is about that. I want to continuously read books. I want to listen to podcasts. I want to surround myself with the people that I want to become an average of, right? The 5 chimp theory, that the 5 people you spend the most time with, you will become an average of those people.
Yeah.
But then again, you can do all of that. But by executing on the spot what you have just learned, that's where the value is. So for me, by affirming that every day and trying to create a habit, also great books about that, about habit forming, I have like little systems in my life and mental models that I try to implement a habit from that one thing that I want to be executing on. So that's the magic behind of what I do, I'd say. Yeah.
Could you give us an example of such a system?
Yeah, well, for example, if you look at a habit, right? This is not my theory. This is of the book Atomic Habits. You have like a cue, you have a reward, you have a routine, and you can either create habits or substitute them or change them by changing one of these steps in this loop. So either the cue, the reward, or the result. And for me, for example, this ritual, the affirmations, right? To get up in the morning and do this thing. In the beginning, it's very weird. Like, am I seriously saying out loud these kind of stuff? But after a while, if you make it a cue, for example, for me, it's my alarm clock. So my alarm clock is some sort of meditation music with a loud bell in the beginning to really wake up. But that reminds me of doing my affirmations, which is the cue. And then the routine, beside my bed, I make it as easy as possible. There's already the list of the things that are my affirmations. Just like if you smoke, the cue would be, oh, I'm bored. The reward is, oh, there's cigarettes in my pocket. Very easy. The routine is smoking. The reward is nicotine. For me, the reward is feeling more present, changing my internal belief systems. And that feels really nice because then everything I do that day is aligned with either my affirmations and values. So habit forming is key. And you can do that in every aspect of your life. For me, this is a daily routine, but could be monthly, yearly, whatever thing you want to accomplish. Yeah.
All right. And in general, you're extremely young to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Were there any moments where you had the feeling that you felt out of place or?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. All my life, I have been the youngest, from elementary school to high school to what I'm doing today. And it's really nice. I mean, you have most of the time you have more energy than the older people, which is really the biggest advantage. And you're healthy. You don't have a wife and a car and a house that you bought, so you can do everything. The risk is minimized, right? So definitely, if you're young, it's a big advantage. Then the disadvantage is that, well, because you're young, you're not always considered to be credible, right? I mean, who am I to talk about habit forming and affirmations to be credible? You know, you need to be a very successful guru or whatever. But then again, I have been like bullied a lot. Some people don't take it seriously. When talking to investors, sometimes they say, hey, go back into college and start finishing some studies or something. That can be quite harsh. Like, you're not always taken seriously. However, now that with the company and in the life that I have lived, I have accomplished quite significant results. The results will speak louder than words and louder than whatever age you are. I mean, there is way younger entrepreneurs out there that are doing insane things, right? I mean, yeah, I don't want to compare myself with those people that are in a different field, but there are so many youngsters out there that found their passion. They are obsessed with it, and they will do everything in their power to become a master. I mean, take, for example, he's not really an entrepreneur, but Martin Garrix, right? The DJ.
Yeah.
He is super duper young, and he's the best DJ in the world, hanging out with all the big stars. But he is so obsessed and passionate and really, really good at what he does, and he ignores the external stimuli and just obsessively focused on that. And that works. So
is that for you also the case? You ignore that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that's also one of the lessons I would say that I have learned, to not depend your happiness upon the opinion of others, right? I think true happiness is within that statement somewhere. If you are not dependent on external stimuli, but only so you don't put value to materials, you don't attach value to what others think of you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can truly do that, like actually what kids are, little kids, they don't care about the Ferrari. I mean, it's cool, but they're not more happy or something. They really live in the moment, in the present, within their internal fantasy world. And as an adult, you start to open up your conscious or whatever. I'm not a neurologist, so this is my own
That's fine
speech. But yeah, don't attach value to external stimuli and keep it within your internal dialogue. That is where I think happiness is.
Because you mentioned that you achieved so much success at such an early age. And in your blog, you also write about the fact that this success didn't result in an additional baseline happiness for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your realizations in that case?
Well, it really depends on what you define as success, right? I don't know. For me, the definition of success, maybe it's good to elaborate on that first.
Sure.
I think it's definitely not about how big your business is or how much funding you got or what your revenue looks like, how many people are in your team. I think success in the end for me personally is way more about, doing the things you love. and if you can do that, then you are successful in my point of view, while having some sort of sustainable basis, right? If you only do the thing you love, but you can't pay rent for 10 years long, that will affect your health, and that's not a good thing. So I think successful people really do the things they love, and they have impact on other people, create value, which could be anything. And in the end, the happiness level is really within the progress, right? I think a great analogy for that is if you have a basketball game or a basketball training, you can continuously look at the scoreboard, right? Like, what is the performance? But if you do that, the players won't improve. But if you focus on the process, only on the process, and in between look at the scoreboard, then the scoreboard will actually show better performance. So also, what I mean with that is you can have huge success looking at the scoreboard, but if you ignore the progress and don't enjoy the progress of the training itself, not playing the game, but the training, you'll end up miserable. And like a lot of the people that I meet now at entrepreneur conferences and whatever, sometimes I really see miserable people that have great, successful companies for the outside world, right? Hundreds of millions in revenue, blah, blah, blah. But then they do not have the time to be with their kids. There's a big investor on board who will be pushing him to work on the weekends. And I'm here, not having that. So you really need to check on which categories in life you assess how good you're doing. And to me, I think this is a nice story to tell. It's also not new, but I really live by that. Is the wheel of life, which is basically a way to see how you are doing, and you can compare it. Basically, what it describes is happiness is a result of being well in finance, the financial aspect of your life, your career, your relationships, and your health. If these four are okay, you should be generally happy. If you're not very happy, usually it's because in one of those categories, something's going wrong. It's like a chair. A chair with 4 legs that are the same length, it is a stable chair. But if one of the chair legs is falling off, it's already a bit unstable. If 2 legs of the chair are gone, you will fall over. It's the same with these categories. So then again, I always grade myself. Like I do it every month, like a sort of meditation session where I check, okay, how's my health? Where is it today and where do I want to be? Where's my finances today and where do I want it to be? How are my relationships and how is my career? And by really asking those questions, you start optimizing not the cog in the machine, but the machine itself, or the system. Yeah, that's a long story, but I just said that I wouldn't do blah, 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 and here I am. Yeah.
And I remember that in one of your interviews, you mentioned that you're also at times quite lonely and that you can't talk about what's really going on with your corporate friends.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. So although now I'm solving it sort of, but the problem is, which I stated in the previous interview, that as an entrepreneur, and as you grow the business, your friends that are not entrepreneurs are less empathetic with your situation, right? You are working on Friday night and they are having drinks and they're like, why are you doing that? That's not healthy. You are worrying about, I don't know, a coworker is pregnant, you need to pay for the time she's off. They don't get that because they graduate and have a regular job in a corporate, which is a different paradigm on reality and business. So this can be really stressful, right? The things you experience as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to do and everything which you are not eligible to do. I mean, there's not an entrepreneur's course. Well, there are, but there's no course that will teach you everything about anything. You need to hire people to do the expertise things for you. And therefore it can be quite lonely because you can't talk to your friends about that stuff because they don't get it. They're not in that situation.
But you said that you are finding now a solution for that. So
So here's the solution. As a real pitch, you always start with the problem, the market need. So now there is what I try to do is I surround myself with like-minded individuals that are either entrepreneurs or in the same stage as well, because that's very vital to have the same stage kind of entrepreneur. And then you can be very raw and real about the stuff you are awake for at night. And that's very nice. And I call it a mastermind. So these mostly people from the Netherlands, like every quarter we come together, we have dinner, and we talk about the real stuff in entrepreneurship, and not the shiny bright stuff. That's for the outside world. That's for the media. But in this mastermind, we really dig into your founder's psyche, like founder therapy, you could call it. Yeah, and that really helps because then it's like, it's okay to be anxious about this. Everyone has it at this stage, and that I know that sense of I'm not the only one is already calming me down.
And what are the things that you're anxious about that you shared during your last meeting?
Very good question. I would say for me personally, what I'm coping with now as the team is growing, people are expensive, really expensive. I think the most valuable asset of a company are humans. Now I talk to them as if they're aliens, but let's be honest. A business is a system. You want to optimize the system, and the system can only work if there are great individuals within the system. But the rent, the tools, the equipment is not as expensive as the HR costs. And now that we're growing and we are becoming a scale up, I can be quite anxious that I have people in the company that it costs so much money. Did I make the right choice? People that want to raise their salaries, and there's so much money going out of the company, and that's like, there's also a lot of money coming in, that it just feels unrealistic to me. Coming from, I'm at a very young age. For me, my rent was already, if I saw 2 zeros on my bank account, I was like, it's a lot of money. And now I see super duper zeros on the bank account also going out and in. And that can make me so anxious, like, oh my gosh, did we hire too many people? Are we spending too much? And it's needed as a tech company. You that's a pattern, right? The first 3 or 4 years, your profit and loss statement will have red numbers. And then afterwards, there's exponential growth. That's what we're all convinced of. But it can be so tough to, and then again, it comes back to my previous point. You need to be super duper convinced that you will make it. And that can sometimes be like, am I really convinced about it?
Yeah.
We're putting in so much money out of the door every month. What? A few years back, that amount of money would have been a grant that we would be super duper happy about, you know. And now it's going out every month, so that's what makes me anxious, like the people.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And
Yeah.
what do you think was your hardest moment so far where you were really close to giving up?
Whew. Um, I never had the feeling of giving up. Sometimes the thought passes my brain. Like sometimes I can be jealous of people that have a regular job, 9 to 5, you know, more security. But that second, it's like 1 second and it's gone, because then I got like, oh man, no, the risk is so big and it can be super crazy, but damn, it's a hell of a ride. And I do the things I love. And that's in the end, the reason to live. So, but yeah, to refer to a moment when it was actually like really tough. That was last year, in the beginning of 2019, where we were about to ship our product, right? We had been working for 3 years on the production. Everything was in place. The delay had happened, which I just talked about. So the expectations were sky high, and we were preparing the shipment, which was a lot of work, and the certification, as you know. So everything came together like this close. There should have been one thing failing, and it would have been gone to waste, but it did not. But that did put so much pressure on me. So much pressure. Like I was working, like I think 70 hours a week at least, because in my dreams, I would also be working. I'm not kidding. My dreams were about work. So it was too much. And I got really these panic attacks for the first time in my life, that I started hyperventilating, and that I was like, I was super duper anxious about the whole situation for some reason, because you're putting out there your a work of 3 years. And it might sound silly to the ones listening, but really, if you launch your product for the first time, it's scary as hell. It's scary as hell, because you don't know what people will actually think about it, especially with the amount of hype that we had in the media. All the people that were already paying for it, like everyone expected the world from it. So that was happening. And at the same time, my ex-girlfriend, which was then my girlfriend, it was not going well between us. So she broke up with me, especially during that time.
During that period.
And I was really heartbroken, like really, that was really painful. Like I could really feel it in my heart. It was not a relationship that was like, okay, it's over. Oh, bless me. No, I was really, really sad about it. I was heartbroken. And yeah, having that amount of pressure, working that long hours, losing someone you love, and which is like your basis in order to do that performance of working that hard in the first place. Yeah, that was just really killing me. So I was not happy the months before the launch, basically. And also when the launch happened, I still was not experiencing joy, because I was close to a burnout. My girlfriend left me. The product was out there, but I was like, yeah, why did I do it all for this? You know, so I couldn't enjoy the launch of my little baby as a figure of speech. That was really tough. But then again, I got that video game analogy. Like, wait a second, man up. You're a one-man army. Look at what you did. You can learn from it. Now that you have learned that these things are so valuable for you, you need to give it attention, because everything you give attention, it grows. And that's when the reviews started coming in of users that were using it and said, oh man, it's changing my life. I'm sleeping again. I'm less depressed. And then I felt like, okay, it's all been worthy.
And how did you get through kind of the double pain of launching the product and losing a relationship?
Talking. Yeah. Like I didn't go to therapy or something. I just have really nice friends and a lovely mom that I'm very thankful for. I mean, because of her, I have this idea, but she's always there for me, always supportive, and just being really raw and real and raw. But really, it's so important, I think, to talk about the things that are not going well with a lot of people to get their view on the problem. That was what pulled me through, and to start focusing on growth and not misery. Really reading books about it. Like I read books about heartbreaks, how to cope with heartbreaks. I felt like a soap series, but if you're in that moment, it can really, and it was really nice to read it because again, there's more people like that. And there's so many theories about how to cope with it and learn from it and yeah, focus on growth. Like really, if you don't grow, you die. Growth is equal to happiness. So for me, that is always the answer in tough times, to focus on what is there and to talk about the people that you love. Yeah.
And because you mentioned that you were also like having trouble sleeping, because you are by now a sleep expert.
Yeah.
Can you maybe give us some tips, how to sleep better, or what we can implement besides Somnox to improve our sleep?
Oh shit, no sales pitch there. Yeah, I mean the thing that I see go wrong the most often is your sleep schedule. It is so important to have the same structure of going to bed and waking up, even in the weekends. So many friends around me, especially entrepreneurs, think it's cool to be working until 2 a.m. It's stupid as fuck. Really, you're less productive. It will make you sick more easily. Don't do it. Try to aim for 7 to 8 hours and have a very concise bedtime and wake up time. That's the low-hanging fruit. And if you're doing that and that is not even working, in that case, I would really recommend to find out why you're not sleeping well. Try to have a sleep diary. And keep track of, okay, what is it that's going on? You can get a tracker or something to also see, is it because am I actually sleeping bad, or is it my perception of my sleep quality? There are so many people that are sleeping quite well, but because they wake up a few times at night, they think they're terrible sleepers. But it's totally okay to be awake during the night. Everyone will be awake during the night. It's called light sleep, or being awake at all. That's fine. So check if it is your perceived sleep quality, or if you're really feeling the effects during the day. And if you've tried everything from not drinking caffeine, not working at night, not having a workout at night, not a heavy meal, then you should start to look at something which is called cognitive behavioral therapy. There are many free apps out there that will teach you about the science of sleep, such as bedtime routines, sleep hygiene, sleep restriction. That would be my best recommendation, apart from our products, to improve your sleep. Don't touch the chemicals. Don't. Melatonin might seem like a natural remedy. It's not. It's to shift. If you're in a different time zone, you are fine by using it, but don't use the chemicals if you're just in the Netherlands, because it's for time shift problems. Yeah.
Do you have a certain recommendation of an app for people to use?
Yeah, that one is paid though, but it's called Sleep.io. So it's Sleep.io. That is the most clinically proven app out there. It's like €10 a month, and I think they're doing a great job of offering CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy, in a digital way.
Awesome. Do you still have like a last key takeaway, a personal insight that helped you grow that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to restate what I've already stated before, which is that knowledge isn't power, execution is. Because that's just, I don't know, I didn't prepare this, but this is the first thing that pops to mind, that everyone that's listening to this is probably eager to improve. But if after listening to this podcast, you didn't do anything with it, it was a waste.
All right.
So there you go.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And for everyone who's watching or listening, I hope you got a lot of insights from today's episode. And if you did, then make sure to like the video. See you next week.